Zafrul Islam Khan, editor of the Milli Gazette, is live from Delhi. Maruf Raza, consulting editor and top strategic affairs analyst from Delhi as well. My first question is to the former advisor of the Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. Dr. Raanan Gissin is joining us from Tel Aviv. Dr. Gissin, whatever the provocation, whoever initiated this crisis, most of the 100 victims of the last few days of the Israeli attack are women and children. You cannot continue this humanitarian tragedy by unleashing any more violence in the Gaza Strip, can you? You will have to call a stop to this soon.
I would like to indicate that Israel is probably the only country in the world, and the city I'm sitting in, Tel Aviv, is probably the only metropolitan in the world that is suffering continuous attacks of missiles from Hamas. I mean, that's a fact of life. For 12 years, over 15,000 rockets and missiles hit our cities and towns in the south. And we tried in many ways to stop it, but it was we were unable to stop it unless, and this is out of necessity, we launched this kind of an operation, a very careful surgical operation, by the way, which resulted, yes, in some civilian casualties, but very much less than what has occurred before.
No, but how far can you take this, sir? How far can you take this?
The message is very clear.
How far? 23 people in one strike are targeted. 14 of them are children and women.
No.
Toddlers, infants.
We're not going. No, we're not going to play the game. We're not going to play Hamas game, and not according to their rules. When we played according to their rules, we continued to suffer these continuous attacks. Every temporary ceasefire was violated, either by Hamas or one of the other terrorist organizations there. You have to understand, Gaza today is controlled by Hamas, sponsored by Iran. Okay? And if we want to stop this stronghold of Iranian frontline, we have to change the rules of the game. Indicate to Hamas that if they want to stay in power, and they are indeed the sovereign power, they must cease from rocket attacks. And we will continue with this operation, and their leaders will have no respite,
Who declared
no
this war?
sanctuary, and no immunity if they continue.
Zafrul Islam Khan,
they will have to ask us for a ceasefire.
They will have to ask us for a ceasefire. Zafrul Islam Khan, Israel is very clear. We will continue.
They will have, yes, they will have to ask.
We will continue.
You know why? Because they are the ones. They are the ones who initiated it. We did not initiate this war.
Dr. Gissin, in India,
we have 1 million people who are craving to live quietly in peace.
Dr. Gissin,
Hamas is not allowing them. It's the responsibility of any sovereign government, democratically elected.
Basic argument here is Zafrul Islam Khan.
Protection to them. It's
Zafrul Islam Khan, the Israelis are saying today it is the Hamas which started this recent fight. It is the Hamas who said the occupation has opened the gates of hell on itself. It is the Hamas which declared the war, and now the Hamas must pay the price for it. Zafrul Islam Khan,
Hamas will pay the price because
Zafrul Islam Khan is responding to you tonight.
We left Gaza. Gaza is not under our occupation.
No,
Gaza is under the occupation and ruthless regime of Hamas.
Zafrul Islam Khan. Dr. Gissin,
not Israel.
Hear the other side tonight. Yes,
Israel is responsible for whatever is happening in Palestine, in Israel, in the Middle East. It is the sole cause of all problems in the Middle East. It is the occupying power. It is laying siege to Gaza since 2006.
We are the solution, not the problem.
It's not
we're the only one that have the solution to the problems
of Palestine. It killed Mr. Ahmad Jabari hours after he received the draft for a truce. So Israel does not want. Israel wants to live at its own conditions and its own rules. It does not want to live peacefully and according to rules accepted by the world. Israel wants to be the goon, the mafia of that region.
Who broke the ceasefire? Who broke the ceasefire? Who broke the ceasefire?
Must leave
Mr.
this
Khan,
occupied. They are occupying this. Some parts are being occupied since 1948 and some parts since 1967.
Question tonight
and
is...
They made a great, actually, beginning in Oslo
Maruf.
20 years ago, which said that after 5 years there will be a Palestinian state, and even
Okay,
now,
one
after 20
response
years,
from
Sudan
Dr.
don't
Gissin
have
to
it.
you.
So Israelis are the problem. Israelis must withdraw. Israelis must leave the Palestinians to live as they want to live.
Well, Dr. Gissin, I'll allow you a brief response before I go across to Maruf Raza. Yes, please.
But you know the difference between us and the Palestinian leadership of Hamas. Hamas is willing to allow us to die in peace. That's all. They are willing to allow us to die in peace. We are willing to allow the Palestinians who are living on the West Bank and in Gaza to live in peace with us. But it must be a real peace with security for both sides.
They were ready to make a truce for 20 years, but you killed the person who was negotiating with you. This is what Israel does.
Tough luck. If they can't live in peace with us, then they will have to suffer the consequences. These are the consequences. What can I tell you?
Maruf Raza, can India remain aloof from this?
What they choose.
Maruf,
they choose to govern the people peacefully,
Maruf,
they choose to die.
Maruf, can we put blinkers on and say we condemn the violence and say nothing more? Because the Ministry of External Affairs right now has put blinkers on the subject by refusing to take a position. Maruf, what do you think?
Arnab, let me come in. Before I comment on India's role, let me sort of cool the tempers down. Let me bring a bit more perspective to it all. There are very strong points of view with the two distinguished speakers, but let's realize a couple of things. One is that Prime Minister Netanyahu has been inching for a conflict with Israel using all the forces possible against Iran. International opinion has stalled that, but you know, he has political compulsions next year when before that he has to show some muscle. At the same time, the Hamas has been a nuisance for Israel, no denying that. However, they are an elected government in the Gaza Strip, and the world raves about democracy all over the world. If the people there have elected them, the people there in Gaza Strip do not have sufficient arms or force within them to control a belligerent political party or an outfit like Hamas. It is certainly being armed by Iran. There is no denying that. But I think it's very clear that the first shots in this recent conflict have been fired by Israel. And once Israel has done that, the response obviously was quite... well, that is the evidence available on the BBC.
Okay, Dr. Gissin disagrees with you. Well, Dr. Gissin has a right to respond. 1 minute. Dr. Gissin said limited time. Dr. Gissin respond.
Just let me complete.
No, one second. Get a response, Maruf, and then I'll come back to you.
Who fired the anti-tank missile?
One second.
Who fired on a school bus?
Hold it.
An anti-tank missile on a yellow school bus.
Hold it, sir.
Who fired the...
No, sir. You are arguing like a schoolboy. Just hold your horses and listen to the other man's perspective. That's the problem with Israel. You don't want to listen to anybody. And you've got your backers in the United States, which is backing you continuously on completely arbitrary use of force. I mean, the people of Palestine need a voice, and you're not allowing them to be heard. You're massacring civilians out there, and you're trying to tell me that it's justified? For heaven's sake, get real. You've got United States backing you up. What I'm trying to say is that you have to use force in proportion to the threat that you face. Israel has always used force. And also remember, in your last few...
Now, Maruf, we'll have to allow a response.
You got a bit of a drubbing.
Now, one minute. Maruf, you made a couple of detailed points. Because I have limited time, I want a response. Maruf, I have limited time. I want to give that time for a response.
What is sad is that the Arab countries have been rather pacifist about this whole thing, and India is dithering.
Maruf, just 1 minute. I want to give equal time to a response on both sides. You make a point, 2 points here today. I want Dr. Garan Gissin to come in clear. One, it's political. It's got to do with the elections. B, Maruf says you have overdone it. You have attacked, but you have attacked more than you should have. It should have been in some proportion. Dr. Gissin.
Yes. What is the question, please?
The question is that you have...
all the garbled noise.
No. The question is that the proportion of your response...
That's not a question. That's a statement.
No, my question is your
proportion? Very proportional. By the way, we have taken careful measures, unlike Operation Cast Lead, where there are some 90 casualties. By the way, most of them are armed Hamas and Islamic Jihad men, compared to the other operation in which we did launch a ground operation where there were 1,400 did. So we took very, very careful measures and using our technology
225 children wounded
and casualties to the civilian
225 children wounded.
We cannot tolerate, we cannot. Well, I can tell you, because the Hamas is operating behind human shields and even behind the press. It's using press buildings and it's using television station to put their command and control there to continue to launch their missiles.
Okay, Zafarul Islam.
Because like India and like the United States,
Zafarul Islam's response.
We have a right of self-defense. It is an unmitigated right.
Dr. Gissin,
the right of self-defense is an unmitigated right.
Dr. Gissin, Zafarul Islam Khan is rebutting you.
Hamas will dictate the...
Dr. Gissin, Zafarul Islam Khan says that your claim, what you're saying about using human shields and children as shields is inappropriate. I allow him a response here. Zafarul Islam Khan, please respond to our guest in Tel Aviv here, please. Dr. Gissin.
You see, Israel always thinks
we see indiscriminate launching of missiles against cities. Even Tel Aviv is under attack today.
The lords and overlords of the Middle East.
Listen to me for a minute. If Delhi or Bombay was under attack, how would the Indian government react?
To the fact that the Middle East has changed. Today, there is no Mubarak to shield them. There is no Tunisia. The whole Arab world has changed. Now they have got to wake up. Please wake up if you want to live peacefully and start living as an ordinary and normal country. You cannot live all your life like a goon, like a gunda, like a mafia. That's why you are living.
Well, if the Arab Spring,
will not have peace.
Will deliver on its promises, then they would extend a hand of peace to Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East.
Well, I'd say one thing. Gentlemen, I'd say two things. One, of course, a country of the size and power and importance of India cannot be a mute spectator to what's going on. We must take a position either way. We must play a role. We cannot distance ourselves from it. Secondly, at some point, gentlemen, this has to stop. Some point, children must stop dying. Some point, innocents and non-combatants must not be targeted. We are following the story. We are increasing our reporting coverage on the story. Gentlemen, Rana Kassim, Zafarul Islam Khan and Maruf Raza, thank you very much for joining me on that last debate on the Newshour tonight. And I thank you very much for being on the show with me today.